All right, guys, today we're working on God's timing. So we're going to be using the Gesso Medium from Dina Walkley, which is already on the page. And then I'm going to be using the God's Timing Ephemera Page Kit that you got in your June box. If you aren't a box subscriber, you can get this off the website at artandjesus.com. But we are going to be using that ephemera set, and then we are also going to be using some distress oxides and inks from Ranger. I will list the colors that I used below in the description. And then we will also possibly be using some spray inks. I hadn't quite decided when I started this video if I was going to use those, but I pulled them out anyway. So we're going to be using those, and we're going to be going ahead and putting our Distress Oxide on our page, and we're going to start with the blue color. It is, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but we're going to use our inks and we're going to use our stencils, and we are going to just start rubbing it over our stencil in places on the page. We are working in Galatians today, and it is all about let us not get tired of doing good, for we will reap at the proper time if we don't give up. Therefore, as opportunity, let us work for the good of all, especially for those who belong to the household of faith. So as we have opportunities, we have to snag those opportunities, and we cannot get tired, because I know sometimes when we're working on our dreams and our goals, it just seems like it's never going to happen, but we can't put a timeline on that because God's timing is perfect. So we have to trust His timing and know that as long as we continue to be faithful and follow the path that He's put us on, He is going to get us where we're going, and we are going to reap our harvest when it is His timing, not ours. And I know that's easier said than done, but honestly, God knows what He's doing, and He sees the big picture, and we don't, so we have to trust that. So that's what this page is all about, just reminding us that God's timing is perfect. So I'm just continuing with my inks here, and I'm going over my stencil, and I'm just kind of blending them all together. And you will see in a little while I actually went around my scripture with all three colors, and then I decided that I was just going to go ahead and go through the whole page and do it on all parts of the page, even over my scripture. And then I took a paper towel and I wetted it, and I just washed over the scripture with that, and it just kind of wiped off that ink enough to where you could see the scripture through the oxide, because these are water reactive, and because they're water reactive, you can kind of manipulate them using a damp cloth, and that's what I did. So they're really user friendly in that if you mess up, you can just add water and it will pick up the color really well. So that's what I did over the scripture. So you'll see that in just a minute, but we're just going to continue to do the ink over the scripture, over the pages here. All right, so once I got that done and I had cleared my scripture to where you could see it, I went ahead and took my black micron pen and I circled the scripture so that it would stand out on the page a little bit more. And so I didn't worry about being neat about it. I just circled it a couple of times so that it could stand out, and so that if somebody was looking at this page, they would know what scripture we had worked on. So I did that with my black micron pen and made sure to use that one because it is water resistant, and that way if I have to put any glue or anything over that, it will not smear or smudge on the page. Once I finished circling the verse, I went ahead and got my blue Pitt pen and highlighted the verse as well so it would stand out a little bit more. But the light blue was just a little too light, so I ended up going back and taking my pink Pitt pen, which was kind of a light rose color, and going over the blue with the pink, and that made it stand out a whole lot more, and you could see the verse a little bit better. So I did use two different colors to highlight the verse so that it would stand out, but it still wasn't super, super dark. So it was just enough that it matched the subtlety of the colors that I picked for the background. So I really liked the way that that turned out. And then I started arranging my ephemera onto the page and decided to use the Do Not Grow Weary in Being Good first, obviously, because that's the verse that we're using. And then I wanted to use the clocks because we're talking about timing. And even though God's timing is totally different than the way that we represent time on earth, clocks are how we do represent that. So I wanted to use the clocks as part of that. And then the little girl who is carrying the clock with the wings on it, like she's kind of carrying it like a balloon. I wanted to use her because oftentimes we tend to get ahead of God and we want things to happen faster, so we're out in front. But in reality, we want to remember that we need to stay behind God and remember that His timing is perfect. And of course, I use the God's timing is perfect because that is the title of the page that we're doing. So then I decided that I really didn't like the background the way that it was. I wanted to add some of the spray inks onto the background just to kind of give it a little bit more of a messy look, because you guys know that I like the messy look on my pages. So I went ahead and sprayed the inks on the pages and then let those dry with my heat gun. And they look really, really dark on the video, but once they were dried with my heat gun and I blotted some of that blue with a paper towel, it did not come out super bright. So you can see in the after pictures at the end of the video that it gave it just enough shimmer and shine because it's got a mica powder inside the spray, so it kind of shimmers when you spray it on there. So it gave it just enough that it really brought out the background. So I really liked the way that that turned out. So I did use those sprays to do that. And then once I did that, I went ahead and dried it with my heat gun. Next, I took my gel medium and I started to glue down my ephemera onto the page. And all I did was just put the gel medium on the back of the ephemera, each piece, rubbed it with my brush, and then I stuck it onto the page. Once I got done and got everything on the page, I took my roller and I rubbed it over all of the pieces to make sure that the edges were down nice and smooth and they were all in place where I wanted them to be. Once I had them in place, I went ahead and wrote on the banner section that I had above the scripture, the title that I wanted on those banners, which was, I trust God's timing in my life, because I wanted to remember that it's important for me to trust God's timing and that it's perfect. And then I put the date on the page. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it inspired you and that you will make a page of your own.